Hey guys, so I want to show two different ways we can get into a 50-50 from a bottom position. We're going to make use primarily of the Keymaster guard, which is a guard that I think is very underused. It's very powerful, and we're going to look at two main variations of how we can play the guard. Okay, one is exclusively using outside positioning, and one is making use of inside and outside positioning. Okay, and there's advantages and disadvantages to each. Insofar as like guard retention is concerned, and also insofar as getting towards the 50-50 is concerned, okay? So we're gonna start with, first of all, what is a Keymaster guard, okay? So my training partner, Rob, here is gonna be on his knees. A Keymaster guard is gonna be any position where I have this leg and a Keymaster hook, okay? This is a Keymaster hook, okay? If you stand up for me, it's possible to form this sort of a hook against a standing opponent, but in a no-gi setting, this is really not very effective. It's very hard to do things effectively here. However, in a kneeling situation, it's very, very good, in fact, okay? Now, what I need to make sure anytime I play either of the two variations of this guard that we're gonna look at is that my shin, okay, or at least one of them, the other one is gonna include two shins doing this, I have at least one shin acting as a barrier, all right? This shin keeps my opponent from coming towards me. If I were to start attacking with this guard and I did not have a shin acting as a barrier, nothing would stop Rob from coming towards me. And now, I mean, you're in a closed guard, he didn't pass your guard or anything, but he did stymie your offense, all right? Now, the basic attack we can do from a Keymaster guard is like this. I keep this leg here, acting as a barrier between his upper body and my upper body. I'm gonna take note also of how I'm gripping his tricep. That's very key, okay? Now, I'm gonna take my right hand, I'm gonna scoop underneath, like so. Right? And take note of how when I do that, I continue to use my left leg as a shield against his upper body. All right? Now I'm going to grab my hands together. When I grab my hands together, it's very important that we take note to if he goes for a darce on me. So Rob, go for a darce. No, like a darce. Yes, very nice, good. Okay, when he goes for that darce, look over a second. Okay, guys, when he goes for that darce, once I feel it coming, go for the darce. I'm going to open up and frame. Okay. Anytime we grab our hands together like so, there is the threat of that. It's okay to take this risk as long as you are ready for the threat of the darts. When you do, you frame here and you won't be able to get it, all right? Now, once I'm here, my goal is to keep his body away from me using my left leg, and I wanna pull his knee on top of my chest, okay? Like so. Now from here, my left leg goes from his shin to my foot, pushing him away, and I use my right leg. See how right now, we went from a Keymaster to a K guard. This is a K guard right here, okay? I'm gonna take my right leg and it drops to his knee. So now when he goes to pinch his knees together, it's more difficult, all right? If I stay here and he goes to pinch his knees together, it's not difficult at all, right? Nothing is stopping him from pinching his knees. I go here, now my left leg is gonna go over the top, and I'm able to go directly into a backside 50-50, all right? From here, I can grab his toes, put them on the top side, we can expose the heel, all right? Now, in this variation of the Keymaster guard, you can see that I have one leg acting as a barrier, all right? And I have one leg acting as a Keymaster hook, okay? This is completely outside positioning based, and the advantage of it is it enables me to latch onto him, okay, from the outside. It allows me to hold on to him, and it makes it more difficult for him to disengage from me, okay? However, if I'm encountering a lot of like aggressive forward movement, because I only have one barrier, it's not going to be as effective as inhibiting that, all right? So let's go towards a situation where, actually let's go on this side. So if I put two of my shins in between my body and his body, now when he goes to come towards me, I can hold him off much, much more easily. Now what you'll notice, however, though, is because I don't have that Keymaster hook on this hip, if he goes to stand up and run away from me, I can't hold on to him as effectively, right? Whereas if I'm here, he goes to stand up and run away, it's much, and even if he goes to do that, it's pretty easy to switch right to a K guard and we can start attacking, all right? However, if I'm here, now you can definitely hold him off with this one leg, all right? But it is going to be a little bit harder because I've only got one leg, right? So when he goes to drive towards me, right, he may very well be able to get past that and come into my close guard, all right? However, if I've got two, there's really no chance he's getting past them, all right? Now from here, how can we use this variation of the guard to get into a bottom 50-50, all right? We're gonna make use of an inside positioning based method, okay? So first thing I'm gonna do is, actually, I wanna go on the other side. So first thing I'm gonna do is take note of the fact that I'm gripping his tricep. That was important in the last one, but it's absolutely crucial in this one. If you're not doing this, you will not be able to hold on to him whatsoever, all right? Now, I'm gonna take my left hand, I'm gonna make a scoop grip, all right? Now my right foot, I flare ever so slightly here, and now my left foot, so I bring my knee to the inside. It's very key. Now this foot is gonna go to, I'm flaring here, it's gonna go to his hip, and now this goes from the tricep to framing. Now I'm gonna retract my left knee, and I bring my foot to the inside. Now my right foot pummels, and now I have a half butterfly. From here, I lift my hips, and I go to a standard ashi. From the standard ashi, you don't have to go to a bottom 50-50. There's a ton of different things you can do, but one good way to get to a bottom 50-50 is like so, where I pummel, and I pass the leg off to the other side. All right, so one more time, that transition. So I have a standard ashi with a scoop grip. My left leg pummels to a butterfly hook. Now my right leg comes out, across my feet, then I pass the leg off to the other side, and I gain a bottom 50-50. All right, so let's look at that one more time. So I have both my legs acting as barriers between my upper body and his upper body, okay? The disadvantage of this is that if Rob just wants to run away from me, just instead of run away from me, it's really hard to stop that, all right? Whereas by contrast, if I was here, and he goes to stand up and run away, it's easy for me to hold on to him because I've got this right leg on the outside, and even if he does, he goes to stand up, it's pretty easy to go right into our K-guard and start attacking, okay? Now, of course, the disadvantage is that I've only got one barrier stopping him from coming towards me, all right? So what we're gonna do is, if we see the guy coming towards me really aggressively, this is the variation that you should opt for, okay? So I'm here, 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 bring this left foot to the inside. Now, this foot on his hip, okay, ultimately I want to elevate him. It's going to be really hard to elevate him with the foot on the hip, so instead I just go inside like so. Now I shoot my hips in, get this leg on top of my shoulder, and we come to the standard ashi. And again, guys, of course you don't have to go to a bottom 50-50, but that is one good option you can opt for in this situation. So, hope this was helpful. Whatever else you guys would like to see, comment down below. All right, guys, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show some matches where we compare the two guards that we looked at. All right, so you've got the shield guard and the keymaster guard. In my opinion, one of the two best players of the shield guard, pretty much ever, probably the best ever, was Eddie Cummings. Okay, the other one was or still is Ross Nichols. Ross Nichols is still actively competing. In the future, I'm gonna break down how both Eddie and Ross play this guard. All right, because as far as I'm aware of, they're really the only two major proponents of this guard at a high level. But we're also going to compare, in this specific video, we're going to look at how Eddie's guard, okay, Eddie's use of the shield guard compares to Lachlan Giles' use of the keymaster guard, okay? Now, the keymaster guard, as we saw, is more outside positioning based. There is some outside position in the shield guard as well, but that's increased with the keymaster guard, okay? Now, each of these guards, just as with inside and outside positioning, generally speaking, carries with it certain advantages and disadvantages, okay? And we're going to have a look at that. Now, first thing first, take a look at how tight Eddie's limbs are to his body. He got his knees very close to his shoulders, again, his heels very close to his butt. That's because when you're playing an inside positioning-based game, one of the major advantages of it is it enables you to really limit limb extension, okay? The extent to which we are capable of limiting limb extension is the extent to which we are going to be capable of protecting inside position, all right? Which means that it's going to be difficult for our opponent to get offense off, okay? So as we see, his opponent who's standing over him is going to drive in, and see how Eddie keeps everything well, right here he's actually extending this leg to, he's going to try to get a Kani Basami here. He ultimately fails, and he retracts the leg. Yeah, it's pretty fast reaction. But anyway, you'll notice here how tight Eddie keeps everything. It's because his opponent who's standing over him is driving in, trying to gain inside position. And Eddie keeps everything very, very tight in order to inhibit that. So he's got a very good, hard to see because the ref is standing right fucking there, but you can see how tight Eddie keeps everything, okay? He's giving his knee to his shoulder on both sides. And he's the main purpose of this is to protect the inside position of his hip. So Monshir's left arm is coming over the top of this shin, and Eddie's grabbing the tricep to pin the bicep right there, so he can't raise his shoulder and bicep over Eddie's knee and grasp the inside of Eddie's hip there. All right, and you see here Eddie's got two shins acting as barriers against Manshir's forward aggression. All right. Yeah, right there. It's a better example. Okay, so he wasn't grabbing his tricep, but grabbing his wrist, which is functionally the same. Usually you'll see Eddie actually grab the tricep. That's something that Eddie definitely seems to prefer. But here he's grabbing the wrist. Okay, he'll do that on occasion as well. There you go. He went to the tricep. That's definitely his preferred grip, it seems. He will use that much more frequently. That grip right there, actually, it's very interesting. Like I said, I'm going to break this down at length at a further date, but the biggest diverging point between Ross Nichols' use of this guard and Eddie's use of this guard is that grip. Ross pretty much never uses this grip. And there are, I think, some instances, especially against JT Torres, that Ross Nichols really could have used this grip to have protected the inside position at his hip. Okay, there's advantages and disadvantages to this grip versus what Ross does. And we'll look at that later. All right, so now we're going to see Eddie go through pretty much the exact technique I show in the technique portion of this this video. Let's watch it in full and then let's break it down. See the grip on the tricep, flaring the foot, pummels to inside position, shoots right through to an ashi. Okay, very beautiful. So let's go through it in full. So this is an inside positioning based method. All right. Now here, Eddie first is in a butterfly guard. He comes forward, and now he does a double koichi where he's going to trip. He's trying to trip Tenquinho at his ankles, and right away, see this inside position here. Tenquinho sees that. All right, he sees that, and he wants to take his arms and get around Eddie's waist. Okay, with the double koichi, the big weakness of it is that there's a lot of limb extension with your legs. And a savvy opponent, throughout this match, Eddie goes for double koichi several times, and Tenquinho is repeatedly trying to gain inside position at Eddie's hips. So as soon as Eddie sees that, as soon as Eddie sees Tenquinho coming forward to gain the inside position at the hips, Eddie's going to draw his knees to his shoulder, and he takes this arm and he grabs the tricep. Okay, now these two shields, acting in conjunction with this tricep grip, protect the inside position at this hip, making use of mostly inside positioning. I mean, you can argue the feet are in an outside positioning situation, and yeah, I would agree with that. But for the most part, it's the inside positioning at the chest with the knees that characterizes this guard. All right, that's the main point of this guard. All right, keeping your knees in front of his chest so that there's no immediate chest-to-chest contact. Because if there's immediate chest-to-chest contact, the guy can take his arm and grab your hip. That's basically what's going on here. Okay. And you've got two knees and the shins acting as barriers against that upper body threat. All right. Now, what Eddie's got to do is, so he's going to take the only point of outside positioning that he has, which is his feet, and I guess his hand too, but he's going to take the biggest point of outside positioning that he has, which is his feet, and he's going to pummel them to an inside position, okay, like we saw in the technique portion of this video. And from there, in conjunction with the grip he's got with his left arm, see, look, he's going to pummel the right foot. Yep, he just got the right foot inside. He was helped by the fact, if you take a look there, what I showed in this video was if a guy is kind of just staying static and how we can progress to inside position. But here, Eddie's helped by the fact that Tenquinho opts to backstep. So a backstep pass is a very good pass. Take a look at Tenquinho's left leg. He's bringing it up because he's trying to pummel that leg up and into an inside position. But as Eddie does that, he times it. And that's what enables Eddie to get the inside position there. Okay, there's a contest of inside positioning happening here. Take a look at Tenquinho's left leg. He tries to get it inside, and Eddie beats him. And Eddie gets it inside. So Eddie wins the pummel there. All right, you can force the inside positioning in the way that I showed it earlier in the video, or as seen here, if you see an opportunity to, you can pummel your leg and gain inside position as he tries to pummel his leg and gain inside position. Regardless, once Eddie has that right leg inside, this left arm gripping behind Tenquinho's right leg is very key, because what it's going to enable him to do is pull his hips in and get his left foot on Tenquinho's right hip. See right there? Yeah. So he's got a standard ashi here, and now immediately he goes to an outside ashi. Tenquinho should not have turned this way, and he exposes the heel. Eddie does not get that finish, but it is probably the closest he came to finishing Tenquinho, and it was like very beginning of the match. So it's like, in my opinion, that's a pretty picture-perfect sequence, with the one exception being the finish. But, you know, otherwise, very perfect. Now here, we're going to see the big weakness of the shield guard, all right, which is that
because it's an inside positioning based guard, it's very well suited to a guy that's coming towards us, okay? But when a guy wants to just run away, it doesn't do much in the way of inhibiting that. Okay, so let's take a look at here how when Eddie shifts into his offense, very similar to attack as the last sequence, he's not really able to hold on to Manchir as Manchir runs away from him. Okay, so right now he's pressuring him, so everything's all good. The guard is well suited for this type of a situation. But now when Manchir feels a threat, he runs away, and it doesn't do a great job of holding on to that. Manchir is able to get away. All right, let's look at that again. So again, take note, the two directions the guy can go. I mean, very broadly speaking, the two things he can do is he can come towards you and attack you, or he can run away, right? He can either engage or disengage, right? And all of his other behaviors can be categorized in those two large groups, right? Here, he's engaging, and as a result, the shield guard is very well suited to that, because if somebody's engaging you actively, right, they are going to be putting themselves into a situation where inside positioning can be attained, right? Because engagement, if you're coming forward, that means your limbs are going to be extending. If your limbs are going to be extending, that means the bottom guy can look to gain inside position on you. However, if you're pulling away, the inside positioning can't really hold on to you. It can't really force you to continue to engage. Okay, so right here, as Munch engages, Eddie's in a good position to attack. But what Munch is going to do is he's going to switch. He starts, see, right here, Eddie's got a grip on the right leg of Munch, and he's going to look to thread this leg over the top to gain an outside ashi. Not the same attack as before, obviously. Right there, we went from in the last one, Eddie went from a half butterfly to an ashi to an outside ashi. Here, he's going straight to an outside ashi, but it's generally speaking the same style of attack. We're looking for a straight ashi urami on the far leg. Okay, it's the entry point is different, but it's largely the same style of attack. All right, so now Eddie here is going to take that leg. He reaps over the top. He almost has actually the same exact position as a backside 50-50 you would arrive in from a K guard. So that's interesting. But anyway, it doesn't really matter because it's too shallow, and Munch is able to pull out. He didn't really have enough to hold on to him as he initiated that entry. All right, because it was all inside positioning. I mean, and the truth is, someone on top who's intelligent is going to constantly be shifting between engaging and disengaging, right? Munch does that in this match. There's a constant interplay between attacking and pulling away. You attack, but then when you feel too much threat, you pull away. It's the same thing that the guy on bottom is going to be doing, right? You're extending your limbs to attack, but then when you feel a threat coming forward, you retract and defend, right? It's that back and forth. And if you only play inside positioning, you only have an answer for one of the two things he's going to do. It's the same thing if you only play outside positioning. We're going to see that in a second with Lachlan. You've got to be able to play inside and outside positioning in order to properly adapt your guard to the circumstances of the behavior of your opponent. All right? So let's go on to Lachlan now. All right, so Lachlan, much more outside positioning based. Okay, Eddie, mostly inside positioning based. There's some outside positioning, but mostly inside positioning. Lachlan is going to be the complete opposite, mostly outside positioning based. And we're going to see some things are going to work way better for him because of that, but other things are going to be way harder for him because of that. All right. So first of all, it's just easier to force outside positioning based guards. Before, you saw Eddie getting into a shield guard when Munch attacked him. Here you're going to see Lachlan proactively throwing himself into a keymaster guard. Right. So he gets his grips and he throws himself in. It's so much easier to force this style of a guard. Okay, you can really throw yourself at the guy and get into it, right? A De La Hiva, a Keymaster, etc., even a close guard, right? Imagine jumping butterfly guard, right? That's ridiculous. Nobody, you don't really ever see that because you would never hold on to the guy. The guy would just get him and walk away. But we see all the time jumping close guards, right? You can have a close guard against a standing opponent. I guess you can do that against you can do that with a butterfly guard too. But anyway, you get my point, guys. You can't proactively force inside positioning based guards in the same way you can with outside positioning. All right. So we see here Lachlan using a Keymaster guard at first. He forces it on Shinji Morito, and now what's going to happen is Shinji stands up and take a look at Lachlan's right leg. He pummels it into a De La Hiva. So another outside positioning based guard. From here, he pummels into a Mantis guard. And we're not going to look at the sequence because the entry into the legs, because it's not super important for what we're breaking down. I just wanted to show how we can proactively force outside positioning in a way we can't with inside positioning. Okay. And now, now here, so here Shinji does drive towards Lachlan. Okay, and instead of retracting his limbs, okay, what he's going to do in order to retain guard is invert. Okay, which is very much the opposite of what Eddie did. Now, I would argue there are some disadvantages with this. So here what you're doing is you're putting your ankles in a situation where hypothetically the offensive man could pin them and then lock your ankles above your knees. All right, which is one of the cardinal sins of guard retention. When we allow our ankles to be locked over our knees, we can be stacked. We can have people fall back for leg locks on us. We can be leg dragged. A lot of bad things can happen. All right. Now, Lachlan is much better than Shinji Morito. Like, the skill level is not even remotely comparable. So that doesn't happen. And it's not to say that you can't play this style of guard retention and have it work very successfully, like many people do. It's just that's one of the shortcomings of this style of retaining your guard. When somebody drives into you, and instead of going inside positioning like Eddie did before, you invert. One of the shortcomings is that there are some defensive deficiencies with this position by virtue of the fact that your limbs are extended. Okay. Now, anyway, so let's keep moving forward. The big advantage of it, however, is that it's easier to shift into outside positioning based attacks. So if what you're trying to do is get outside positioning based attacks like Lachlan was, inverting is more intelligent because while having limb extension in your legs, it has some defensive deficiencies. It also has some offensive advantages insofar as outside positioning based attacks are concerned. What am I talking about? Well, take a look at Lachlan's ankles. Because they're still extended, when Shinji drives forward, it's easier for Lachlan to get his legs into a position, right? He goes right back into the Keymaster guard and he can attack. Whereas contrast that with, so right here, imagine if here Eddie wanted to go into a Keymaster guard. It would be a little bit more difficult. I mean, I don't think it's impossible. He could pummel this leg out here and still definitely do it, but it would probably be a little bit harder. So this position and this position are both a response to the same threat, which is forward engagement, like forward pressure engagement. All right, so like for instance, right here, when Munch drives into Eddie, Lachlan's response was to invert. Eddie's response was to draw his knees in, right? I think drawing your knees in is definitely safer, right? Going to the shield guard, playing inside positioning is definitely safer. But if your goal is to get to an outside positioning based attack, what Lachlan does is going to be a more fluid sequence. All right, so that's why Lachlan does that. Easier to connect into outside positioning based attacks. There are more counters though. That's kind of the big theme with outside positioning versus inside positioning. Outside positioning, easier to force, and it is easier to get going initially. All right. However, the big weakness is that it's easier to get countered with. Inside positioning is safer, harder to get countered with, but it's harder to get going. It requires an aggressive opponent, and like oftentimes you're not going to get that at a high level. People are just going to fucking stall. All right, so you got to know how to do both based on the context of the situation. All right, so now we're going to see Lachlan classic Keymaster guard attack, basically the same attack we looked at in the technique portion of the video. So take a look at how. So here he first is using his leg as a barrier, but then he puts his foot there. If there's enough space and you can get that foot in, I would definitely recommend doing that over using your shin, because this is going to be a farther. Basically, you can keep it farther away with your foot than you can with your knee, obviously, right? So, and then Lachlan is going to go into the same attack I broke down. Here, the big thing that goes wrong is Shinji brings his knees together. Yeah, that's a problem now. In order for Lachlan to get his foot in there, there's not a lot of space. What Lachlan could have done, it's hard here actually because Shinji is pinning his leg. What Lachlan might have wanted to do is use this leg to keep this knee away. Okay, but here Shinji is doing a pretty smart thing in pinning that leg, so Lachlan can't do it. But ultimately, what happens here is they wind up in a double seated situation, and Lachlan gets the heel hook, regardless. All right. Now, a further weakness of outside positioning here, okay, is it's harder to regulate distance, okay, in this like tight range, okay. So here, Masahiro Iwasaki, he really shut down Lachlan's leg lock attacks better than pretty much anybody outside of Lucas Lepre, who beat him, obviously. It's a very tight match. And what Masahiro is going to do is take a look at how Lachlan plays this Keymaster guard here, and Masahiro's pressure is really, really low. What Masahiro is going to do, because Lachlan only has one leg acting as a barrier, so this leg here enables Lachlan to prohibit Masahiro's ability to disengage. And if he does, even if he does disengage, and you can't stop it, it would, like, what would happen is what happens here. He just goes to a De La Riva. Like, it doesn't matter. He gets another guard, right? So if you do back away and if you back away and disengage here, what's going to happen is, in order to back away, you've got to extend your legs, right? It's going to be really hard to back away without doing that. Okay, and as a result, what happens is you get put into a De La Riva, right? So just more outside positioning based guards happen to you. Whereas with inside positioning based guards, if I want to advance positionally, I have to go forward, right? To go from a butterfly guard to an Ashigarami, I have to go forward. Here, you can progress if the guy goes backwards, right? So that's another reason why it's better for inhibiting disengagement. However, here what happens is instead of going forward to stall, Masahiro actually, I'm sorry, instead of going backwards to stall, Masahiro actually comes forward to stall, right? Basically, what Masahiro is trying to do is, in my opinion, in this match, he was just trying to get to the wrestling period. And what happens there is Lachlan gets the better of him in that period. I believe there were no points scored, and it went to a ref's decision. Lachlan got it, obviously. This is Lachlan's ADCC trials run in Japan that he won before his bronze medal performance at the Worlds. But anyway, so Lachlan's got that one leg acting to inhibit Masahiro's backwards stalling, but in order to do that, he has to make it the case that he's only got one leg to act as a barrier to inhibit Masahiro's forward pressure. And as a result, look what happens. He gets put into a close guard. So he's trying to get that leg and goes to the arm here. And Masahiro is just able to drive in and put him into a close guard situation. Yeah, he wasn't as well suited for dealing with that forward aggression. Whereas by contrast, like here, he could keep these two legs away and really keep Munch away from him. Now, the trick is guys, is a closed guard a bad position? No, of course not. It's still a position you can attack from. It's still a good position. But if your goal is to prevent him from coming towards you and attack his legs, this is definitely a better situation than a closed guard, okay? It's going to be harder to attack his legs here than it is here, okay? Because there's more distance here, all right? So in the future, I'm going to do more breakdowns on these guards because I think that they're two of the most understudied guards in all of grappling, and I think that they're very important. People are always talking about like mid-range guards, for instance, such as De La Riva or Ashigarami, right? They don't really talk about like close-range guards that much. Close-range open guards, like at length. I think there's very little discussion on that, so I will be talking about it more in the future. Probably the next one I'll break down Eddie's use of shield guard versus Ross Nichols, which I think is very interesting.